if we speak about the term UX itself, it simply means user experience. If you want to hear a definition, then probably there are dozens of them outside. But I would like to explain it in the way how I see it. So, in a nutshell, user experience refers to the feeling users or people like me and you experience when using a product, an application, a system, or a service. So it's a broad term that covers anything from how well or how bad a person can navigate to a product, how easy it is to use, and how relevant content, for example, is displayed to me. So very often the term is used in connection with digital products like websites or apps. That's usually where we think about the term in connection with UX. But I would not generalize UX just for digital products. That would be kind of wrong because it's more than this. And the concept of UX goes beyond just digital products. And here I would like to share a kind of narrative which describes UX through a different perspective, which we experience or get in touch with, I think, quite often. So imagine you're walking into a newly opened cafe in the town, and the exterior, for example, is charming. The aroma of the freshly brewed coffee pulls you inside, and you step in, and you are greeted with warm, nicely lighting, and the chairs are very thoughtfully placed for both for groups and for solo visitors. The menu which you receive is easily readable with clear descriptions for each drink and snack so that you make your choice straightforward without thinking an hour what you want to choose from. And when you place your order, the barista not only makes you your coffee efficiently, but also engage you in a pleasant conversation and adding into this whole thing a personal touch to your visit. So once you sip your perfectly crafted coffee, you realize that every aspect of the coffee or the cafe, from its design to its service, has been precisely planned to ensure you as a visitor have a delightful experience. So the holistic and thoughtful consideration for a guest experience in that cafe, I think, mirrors exactly what user experience or UX aims to achieve as well in the digital world. So it's not just about how a website or how an app looks, but how it feels, how intuitive, how efficient it's for the person or for the user, how it meets the user's expectations. Just like that example with the cafe, a good UX design anticipates and addresses all aspects of user's interaction or with the interaction of the person with the product, ensuring that they leave satisfied, their needs are met, and with a desire as well to return. That's what every business, what every product, what every service, that's the end goal, the desire to return. And that's what makes, if we speak about digital products like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that's why the UX is what is making the experience so good. That is what it's returning you daily, on the daily basis, back to those apps, for example. And what I'm doing on the daily basis as a user experience designer. So user experience design, that's basically the process design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experience to the user. So what makes an app, what makes a service, a product successful? It's not just the beautiful design, but it's moreover the experience which you get out of it.
You said something interesting there. It's that desire to go back.
Yeah.
So I've been going to a rejuvenation clinic here in Taiwan, and every time I walk to the front of the rejuvenation clinic, aesthetically, it is very pleasing. It's clean, there's marble floors, it's a 5-star experience. The doors open, the cold air conditioning rushes out. And I walk in and there's half a dozen gorgeous women behind the counter. And not one of them says hello.
Yes.
And they sit there. And I look around, I think, am I invisible? And then finally somebody looks up from their computer like I've interrupted their lunch. And they say, go and sit over there. So you go sit in the corner and there's a whole row of chairs and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And then somebody comes out, they administer the injection, and away you go. Now, when I leave, I stand up to leave. I've just given them my hard-earned money, and those same 5 or 6 gorgeous girls are still sitting there, eyes glued to the computer, and nobody bids me farewell. And I think to myself, this is not a wonderful experience.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there's not a lot of options for me in the area. So I know that if somebody else offered a competing service, I'd be happily to give up this one to feel like I'm actually welcomed, and when I leave, to be thanked for participating in the service. And I've had that just hours ago. I don't necessarily want to go back. They got something good, but I don't really want to go back.
Correctly. And this is what a lot of people, like if you travel a lot, it starts from so you know your end destination, you will have a 5-star hotel. But if the experience already to those 5-star hotel, starting from the flight, starting from arriving at the airport, going from the airport to the hotel, and might be a difficult journey, but once you arrive at this 5-star hotel, then you should feel the bad experience which you had previously. They need to they have to give you the good experience in continue, like and a simple hello, a simple good afternoon, goodbye, that as well is part of a customer experience, right? So the journey is very, very important. How you interact with that, how is the experience, why you are using it, and with what type of impression you leave. And that are the key factors. I mean, with what type of impression you leave the product, the service, the institutions, the business, the everything. Yeah.
Many
So
years
you
ago,
absolutely- yeah.
I was based in
Yeah.
Dubai, and I was in the Emirates Aviation College. And in the college, we had the user experience mapped out. So it was mapped out in Lego figurines from the moment that the customer first interacted with the brand of Emirates to the moment they disembarked off a flight. So this wall must have been about 2.5 metres high and at least 4 metres long. And they showed the customer journey from the time that they booked a ticket, they spoke to an agent. By the time they got to the airport, they spoke to check-in, they get through customs, they're in the waiting lounge, they walk down the aerobridge onto the aircraft, see the crew, get served their meals, disembark in Dubai, get met by the ground staff, go through the airport, go through customs, go to the curbside, hop in the taxi, go to the hotel. And Emirates Airline were obsessed with that user experience, and they knew what would happen along every step of the journey. And there was a system and a process to deal with the customer to give them that Emirates 5-star service. And it was quite fascinating, but very rarely I think a lot of businesses really think it through. So it means that somebody's got to be on the team. So when it comes to this user experience and the people who are thinking it through, what does a high-performing team member look like? What are some of their behaviours? What should motivate them? What are some of those soft skills for a high performer in this area?
There are multiple aspects if you are a company which has, let's say, a low UX maturity. So you as a company itself, you don't know what means UX, but you want to have UX designers because it's now trendy. That brings a lot of challenges for the designer and the design team itself, because it brings a lot of, you need to educate and advocate a lot. You need to explain the basics of what is UX. UX is not just the visual part. The visual part is basically the front end, which you see, but the back end, on the back side, that's the magic where everything happens. So skills as communication skills, you need to sell. You need to be a good storyteller to captivate the audience and convey that ideas are clearly, and ensuring that everyone is kind of on the same page, or bringing them somehow to the same page. And I think as well a growth mindset is super important. You always need to learn and get better, and believing somehow that you can improve certain things, even if it's challenging, and be as well kind of flexible, right? So in this type of companies where there is a low UX maturity, where people really don't understand what UX supposed to do, you will feel a lot of resistance, right? So you need to be very flexible and in this changing environments, and take on new tasks, different tasks, to kind of get at the end somehow to your purpose, right? To educate those people why UX is important. And when we speak general about a high performer in a team, then usually we think about people who are like dying for their job, which means, considering a person who goes above and beyond to achieve their goals and complete their tasks or assignments at work. And usually those people are taking initiatives and focusing on improving workplace habits and behaviors, so that the company or the team benefits from their actions. So, yeah.
I'd love to. I'd love to hear your take on that growth mindset. A lot of people throw around the word growth mindset like they throw around emotional intelligence. What's your definition of growth mindset? How do you look at that from your perspective and from this industry?
When I hear the word growth mindset or growth, it's looking on a bigger picture. If, like, usually we hear those questions in an interview, how do you see yourself in 5 years, right? Like, you need to have, in order to have this growth mindset, you need to have, like, from a personal perspective, not just from a professional perspective, always to have somehow a plan. Where do you want to go? Who you want to become? Where you want to be? It doesn't mean necessarily you need to have all the answers, but a kind of vision. Where do you want to get to? So this growth mindset is a bit more, or how I see it, looking beyond the, in German you say, beyond the plate, on the table. So you have to see a bit more above your tasks. Yeah, you need to see a bit more the bigger picture. So if you are as well working in a team and as well on a project or on a product, it's not just about the roadmap which you have for a year set up. It's just take as well 2 steps further and trying to understand where the company, where this product, where I want to, which direction I want to achieve. So it's more about looking beyond your current task, your current being, That's how I see, or how I would connect the growth mindset. Yeah.
There's a soft skill, and it's called futuristic thinking. And people who score high in futuristic thinking do have a very different ability to perceive the future. And with a lot of people, the way that they think is paycheck to paycheck. So if somebody is paid week to week, their ability to think out into the future exceeds no more than a week, especially if they're getting paid week to week and they're living hand to mouth. Other people who are living month to month and get paid month to month, they turn to think in terms of a monthly paycheck. So as they look out into the future, they can't think much further than a month. But this futuristic thinking score is actually very, very low in the society, because I've had clients go out into the marketplace and look for a futuristic thinker, and they've interviewed dozens of people, but they can't seem to find them. And like you said here, this futuristic thinker, they look beyond the table and they have the ability to perceive where these actions can lead the business in 1 or 2 or 3 years down the track. And some people who have a very high futuristic thinking score, they can even think 10 to 15 to 20 years out the track. You know, one of the perfect examples that I think everybody would come to mind is Elon Musk. In terms of futuristic thinking, this mission to Mars is 30 and 50 years down the track, but he can already perceive it. But he has this ability, which ties into what you mentioned before, is communication. He can see 50 years out in the future, and he can also communicate that so that the average person can get it.
Yeah.
So as I pull this apart in my mind from a core competencies perspective, one, we've got flexibility. As you mentioned before, it's this growth mindset. This person has to be flexible in the way that they deal with the world. Secondly, they've got to be a great communicator, and they've got to be able to articulate what the customer wants, which means they've got to be able to understand the customer. And then thirdly, it's that futuristic score, where they can look beyond the table.
Correct.
That's how I hear it.
Yeah. I agree with you.
For these people in design, I'm sure this area comes with its own forms of stress, and the environment can be very, very toxic. When that environment becomes toxic, what are some of the signs? What are some of the symptoms that you see?
A difficult topic. So, when you are a member of a toxic team, I wouldn't necessarily speak about design teams in general, about a member of a toxic team, you can almost feel it in the air if there is some toxic mood around. Yeah? The moment you step out of the elevator and enter your workspace, it immediately drains you, right? So instead of beginning the day with like excitement for the wonderful job ahead, you kind of enter in a kind of survival mood and preparing constantly for these fights, which are like invisible around you. And if your team is toxic, that's horrible. You know, that's a crisis. So I don't think that I experience being part of a toxic team, but I would consider I have been working in a toxic work environment or a culture, or being part of, or having toxic managers. And one of the thoughts which I had, or kind of got confirmed as well with other people to whom I have been talking about, is hearing a combination of frustration and anxiety working in a toxic environment. And questions which I had were like, I have no idea how to handle this, or what if nothing ever changes? So this is, I think, the anxiety which you have being around of toxic people or this culture. So, and if we speak about signs, then there are coming a couple of them in my mind, and I think it's the signs of like general sense of unhappiness. You know, you have this lack of enthusiasm among your colleagues. One sign is as well like the trust you distrust. I mean, you are not trusting each other, and I think that's the worst which can happen inside a team or inside a company, that you cannot count on each other, and it has an impact as well on your team if you don't trust each other. It connects as well with the performance which the team is doing, because you can't work together. Skepticism or disbelief, right, in your colleagues. And there is as well, it's difficult to work, right? And as well, not having the space, a safe space of providing feedback and giving feedback, which can be positive or negative. So overreactions to feedback or criticism, often with that finger pointing mood, right? So these are kind of my signs of when there is a toxic mood around. Yeah.
I remember at Emirates Airline, the first thing that I would see is once the environment became toxic, I could see it in the cruise deportment. So being a senior flight steward, I was always there waiting for my team to arrive for the flight. And they would come in late, their shoulders would be rolled forward, their uniform wasn't done properly, the makeup wasn't done, the hair wasn't done, the boys hadn't shaved properly. And you could see it through their physiology and the body language before they even got into the briefing room. Once they got into the briefing room, the second thing that I noticed was their lack of energy. They wouldn't speak with enthusiasm. They'd be short. They'd be abrupt. And then their choice of words following that. They would quickly go from the positive and the constructive to the negative and the destructive. And the conversations were always negative.
Yeah.
Finger pointing, blaming, complaining. And I think the very best one that I saw...
Gossiping is also one sign, I think, like having this gossip mood constantly, around your colleagues or,
We would call it galley gossip. And literally after the service or before the service, everybody would just be bitching, complaining and moaning about the company. And I remember we were onboarding an aircraft. We were flying to Europe. So we're expecting around about 300 customers in economy class. And one of the female crew, as the customers were onboarding, instead of looking at the customers, she's just looking at her fingernails. And I said to her, hey, what are you doing? She said, I'm treating the customers like the company treats me.
Oh.
So, whoa, this is going to be an interesting flight.
Yeah.
Very interesting flight. Now, if you were taking a design leadership role and you had to make a significant impact, how would you structure and approach your first 100 days of a design leadership role?
Yeah. So if you get hired on a management or leadership position at a new company, I think the first 3 till 6 months, you are not a manager. So everything is going to go better if you come in a learning mode, right? So you are entering as an outsider inside most probably an existing team. So you need to have like a respect for the people who are on the team and who have been in the team for years. I think you need to try to understand how things are currently working, what's going well, what's going bad, getting a feel for the different personalities on your team. And I think it's the most important thing, coming in and doing tasks which are below your kind of pay grade. And in your first 100 days, or your whole goal should be to earn trust and build relationships with the people, not just with your design team, but as well with cross-functional teams. And after that, you can start to manage or to lead. So you are basically entering your new role and your new job and do a kind of assessment of the current situation where you got in, where listening and learning plays a very crucial role. So once you join, spend time meeting with cross-functional teams, stakeholders, and most importantly, your design team in this case, and understand the challenges, the goals, and the expectations which they have from you, in general, from the team growth. And so what is as well important is like understand the culture. That's something what you can't get immediately when you are in this interview phases, right? So understanding a culture, you can just get an understanding and a feeling of it once you are inside. So you need to get a feeling for the organizational culture, dynamics, and identify both like formal and informal, like the power structures, right? So in my case, the most important thing for me was building those relationships and connecting with other team members, with other leaders from different departments such as product, engineering, marketing, and sales, and understand how design fits into the broader organizational goals. After that, create a kind of strategy and set up a vision, right? Based on your assessments which you did, based on the meetings which you had with the people, and building the relationship. Relationship building is like a constant thing. It's not just, you have a couple of meetings and then you think you're in a good relationship with someone. But you start that, set a clear vision for the design team that aligns as well with the organizational goals, right? And after that, that's, I think, the most difficult part is the implementation part, and to get buy-in, get a voice, get a visibility inside the company, and roll out some initiatives, execute the strategies which you set up, and try to get the things done, and educate, advocate, run workshops or sessions where people hear you and understand or bring some awareness of design and think across the organization. Yeah.